my name is Malika. I'm the co-founder of Locals Insight, and today I'm sitting down with a Copenhagen local who actually started a walking tour company here to get everything that you need to know before you go. So, without further ado,
I'm Rikke from Copenhagen Free Walking Tours.
why did you decide to become a tour guide and start your company?
We started our business 10 years ago when we first saw that there was a market in Copenhagen because another company had just left and left us all without a job. Because we all worked for another company and we're like, well, we really like our jobs, but now that they're not here, what do we do? So really quick decision. We started Copenhagen Free Walking Tours from like day to day, and somehow I'm still here 10 years later. Don't know how it happened, but yeah, I love it.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
How did you curate your tours? What do you expect people to get out of them?
We want people to see the best of Copenhagen. So the first tour we created is what we call the Grand Tour of Copenhagen, which is like the general overview of the city. We start from Town Hall Square and we walk up to the Royal Palace, and in between there's a lot of really big sites that people want to see, like for example the Parliament and Nyhavn, where all the colorful houses are by the water and so on. So we want to create this one tour where you could see as much as possible. And then we have a couple of other tours that we added on later on because we want to show other neighborhoods of the city as well. But the Grand Tour was like our first project, and it was like, let's cover as much as possible in a short amount of time.
So I guess kind of digging more into the city itself, as a local from Copenhagen, if you had someone visiting you for, say, a weekend or just 24 hours, where would you take them?
So I'd probably show them a couple of the big sites in the inner city. And then I'd probably take them outside the city a little bit. There's some cool neighborhoods around the city center where a lot of people go there nowadays, but in the past people would really focus on the inner city of Copenhagen. So for me, I would take them out to, for example, Nørrebro, which is one of the neighborhoods, which is like a really cool sort of multicultural neighborhood with people from around the world, great food from around the world. There's a really cool cemetery out there where, for example, Hans Christian Andersen is buried, the one who wrote The Little Mermaid. So you can visit the grave where he is buried, and there's some cool park areas and so on. So just a really nice vibe in that neighborhood. And then there's a newish neighborhood called the Carlsberg City, which is actually the old brewery. So where the brewery used to be is nowadays a neighborhood. So it's where there's lots of people living in both the old houses that's been there for ages, but also new, very modern apartment buildings. And then there's like cafes and restaurants and little park areas and so on. So these are like the two neighborhoods that I really like to go to that are sort of a little bit different than the main city sites.
Where do you think people should stay when they come? Say they only have a short amount of time here. What are the best neighborhoods to spend their time in? Are the ones you mentioned?
Yes and no. I'd probably recommend that you stay in the city center of Copenhagen, because if you stay in the city center, you are within walking distance of all the big sites. So if you stay in the city center, you can literally walk to pretty much everywhere. There's a lot of hotels located in Vesterbro, which is also one of the neighborhoods of Copenhagen that is really cool and trendy, and it's where you find the meatpacking district with lots of foods and bars and so on. So I'd probably recommend Vesterbro just because it is very, very central and it's a cool neighborhood.
Nice. Would you mind giving us a really quick rundown of all of the different neighborhoods here in Copenhagen?
Mm-hmm. So there's the inner city of Copenhagen, and then there is the bros. We've got Nørrebro, Vesterbro, Østerbro, which is like north, west and east. And then we've got Amager, which is also the one that has the nickname Shit Island.
Oh!
Yes, because it was literally the place where all the shit from Copenhagen was taken to and dumped. So originally the island was actually quite small, but it got bigger over time because it's sort of the rubbish island. So that's why we call it Shit Island. But that's another neighborhood that's very central to Copenhagen, where a lot of people there are living. It's also where the airport is located. Yeah. So you've probably been to Shit Island.
So you're telling me the airport is literally located on Shit Island?
That's what I'm telling you, yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard anything like that about a city before.
Welcome to Copenhagen.
Oh my goodness, that's hilarious. I guess, kind of digging more into about the city itself, are there any things that are very quintessentially Copenhagen? Like, is there anything we have to do or try to say we've really experienced the city?
Yes, pastries. Pastries is probably one of the most essential things to try while you're here, and it's also one of the things where when you talk to someone who just came to the city, most of them have already been to the bakeries, because we do have some really nice bakeries here with some really good pastries. We got a lot of really old bakery shops, really sort of traditional ones, and we got a lot of really new modern pastry shops as well, bakeries as well. There's a really big foodie scene in Copenhagen at the moment. There's a lot of Michelin-starred restaurants and so on. So of course there's a lot of talented chefs and also a lot of really good bakeries. Yeah. So get some pastries, stay out of the bike lane, don't get killed. Because the Danes are dangerous when they get on their bicycles. Very friendly people, amongst the happiest people on earth, but as soon as you put them on a bike, yeah, not so friendly anymore.
Would you recommend people to hop on a bike when they're here?
Getting on a bike is a really good way of seeing the city, because honestly Copenhagen is so small that you can walk everywhere, but of course you can get to everywhere a lot faster if you're on a bike. So you can literally see the city in a day or two if you're on a bike. Of course there's always more things to see, so you can also stay here for like a week or longer and still have things to explore, but you can see a lot of the city in just a day or two, especially if you're on a bike, because you can get around really fast.
Is there any sort of bike culture that people should know?
Yeah, if you do get on a bike, I'd say the most important things is that you need to be in the bike lane. You need to be on the right hand side of the bike lane so the locals can overtake you. If you're stopping on your bike, you need to do the stop signal, which is like this. So this indicates that you're stopping, so people behind you knows that you are stopping on your bike. And then of course turning, put out the right hand to the right and left hand to the left. So basically signaling when you're on your bike is very important, so the locals don't get upset with you. Yeah.
That's good to know. I'm horrible
Yeah.
on a bike, so I don't know if I would do it.
Well, I mean, it's a very safe place to bike because of the bike lanes. The city is basically built up for the cyclist before the cars. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we got a lot of bike lanes in the city center, but we also got bicycle highways. So if you live a little bit outside the city center, there's actually a chance that you have a bike lane that takes you all the way from the suburb where you're living into the city center in one of these bicycle highways. And the idea is to go through mainly green areas, so it's safe, and also to have green lights the whole way, so you don't need to stop all the time. So it feels really safe going on these bicycle highways to get from the suburbs into the city. And it's basically a way of trying to convince people to take the bikes rather than the cars. And a lot of people, they do bikes, so it is definitely working.
Wow, all the way from the suburbs?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a lot cheaper to have a bike, and it's a lot easier to get around in Copenhagen on a bike than on a car. So a lot of people, they actually do take their bikes.
Wow.
Yeah, some people will take their bikes to the train station and take the train for a while and then get on the bike again. But a lot of people will bike all the way into the city center.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I guess that's why everyone's so fit here.
Yes, that's true. Copenhagen is a very fit city.
How do locals generally feel about tourists? Like when tourists come here, what should they know about the locals and how to treat them?
Most of the locals, they love the tourists and they are very happy to help you. One of the things I hear from the people who go on my walking tours is that they are very surprised that as soon as they stop and look confused or look at a map, there'll be a local person asking them if they need any help. So there's a lot of really friendly people who are able to help you and want to give you directions and want to give you recommendations as well. And you know, in Scandinavia, there's a lot of people with a very high level of English. So I think a lot of local people find it easy to communicate with you if you speak in another language, if you speak English, of course. So I think they're not afraid to ask you if you need any help and actually try and help you out. I think they're also very proud of their country and so on. So I think that's why they want to help you get the best possible experience.
Are there any unique traditions or customs to Danish culture or Copenhagen culture in particular?
When the students, they graduate, so every year and around June, when they're done with their educations, when they finish their, it's called gymnasium in Danish, it's sort of like, I think it's like high school or college or something like that, when they're around 18 to 20 years old. When they finish their education, when they have the last exam, they get a little hat on, which sort of indicates that they're done with their education. It sort of looks a little bit like a sailor's hat. That's what a lot of people refer to it as. But they get on that little hat. And then here in Copenhagen, there's a tradition of coming into town, into Kongens Nytorv, which is one of the big squares in the city. And they drive around on like these open trucks, which is the only day of the year you're allowed to be on the back of an open truck. But on that day they are. And they drive into Kongens Nytorv and they let off all the young kids and they actually dance around the inner circle of Kongens Nytorv with their hats on. And I think that's a very Danish and very Copenhagen tradition of doing that.
I love that. So funny enough, I actually heard about that from some locals.
It started with the midwives who used to come into the stork fountain. So they'd come into that particular fountain and dance around that when they're done with their education. And then it sort of spread from there on.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Kind of speaking about the language as well, do you think people need to know like basic phrases before they come?
There's a high level of English in Scandinavia. So a lot of people, they can get by with just speaking English. Of course, it is always nice to try, but I've talked to the guides about this many times because obviously I'm from here, so I don't have the perspective of being from somewhere else and coming here to try and live here. And a lot of them, they say that even if they have basic understanding of Danish, when they try and use it, the Danes will be like, oh, I hear an accent there, and they'll start speaking to them in English instead.
Oh, really?
Yes, so a lot of them are actually a little bit frustrated that they can't get to practice their Danish because people, they want to speak English with them.
Oh.
Yeah. But there's a couple of basic words that we try and teach the guests who go on our tours, like for example how to say hello and goodbye, and beer is very important as well. Yeah, so there's a couple of good words to learn.
Okay, what would you say are the top Danish phrases people should know before they come?
I'd probably go with the words more than the phrases, because the phrases, speaking Danish is not easy, and putting a lot of words together can be a little bit difficult. So 10 words that would be good to know in Danish would be hello, which in Danish is hej, very easy. Goodbye in Danish is hej hej. Yes is ja, and no is nej.
Whoa, okay.
Thank you is tak, which is the same as in Swedish and Norwegian as well. Actually, the Danish, Swedish, Norwegian language used to be one language that went in 3 different directions. So the base of the language is very similar. Nowadays, depending on the accent, we might be able to communicate in our own languages. But again, we have a high level of English, so sometimes it's easier to switch to English, even if we're from these Scandinavian countries. Another word that's important is the word for beer. And beer in Danish is øl. 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 Sort of like when you had too many of them. Øl. Yeah. And cheers in Danish is skål.
Skål.
Skål. Sort of like skull. Skål.
Skål.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a Danish word that is very important and that we always try and teach people who visit here. And it's a Danish word that can't really be translated into English. The closest translation is cozy or coziness, but it doesn't fully cover it. And the word is hygge.
Hygge.
Hygge is a word that the Danes, they use all the time. And it's a very sort of unique word to the Danes. Like, for example, when our crown princess here, she's from Australia, when she first moved here, in one of the first interviews she gave in Danish, she mentioned how this word was already very special to her and that she really liked using it and so on. And basically the closest translation is cozy or coziness, but it's so much more than that. You can use it for like, yeah, where we're located right now is a very sort of hygge little park area. Walking around the old streets of Copenhagen, they are very hygge. But hygge can also be something where you meet up with friends and have a barbecue and hang out and so on. That's sort of a hygge moment that you share with someone. But it can also be sitting at home with a book, live candles, a little blanket. That's sort of also a hygge moment.
Aww.
Yeah, so the Danes, they use the word hygge a lot.
Yeah, it's definitely a difficult language if you don't have the tongue for it.
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
Definitely some really good phrases to know. You know, since you said biking culture is such a big thing here, is public transportation just as widely used as well?
Yeah, the public transportation here is pretty good. And also, you know, the Danes, they are very much on time. And so is the public transport most of the time. Most of the time you can rely on the buses, the trains and the metro and everything. The metro is driverless, so it runs all the time, even in the middle of the night and so on, because there's no one driving it, it just goes automatically.
What?
Yes.
What?
The metro is very new. The oldest part of the metro is 20 years old, and the youngest part opened just a couple of years ago in 2019. So,
oh my goodness.
Yeah, so the metro is very, very new, and that's also why they've made it so it's driverless.
Wow.
So the metro runs all the time. The buses run pretty well. There's a lot of them that also runs in the middle of the night. And then there's the trains connecting, like if you need to go a little bit further as well.
Yeah.
There's a lot of canals in Copenhagen, so we also have the harbor buses. And basically, if you get a ticket for either of these public transportation, it works for all 4 of them. Metro, bus, trains, the harbor boat as well.
Okay, so would it be like a card or a ticket, or I guess just how does it work?
So most people, they use an app to buy their tickets for public transportation. Yeah. You can still buy a physical ticket at the metro station and from the bus driver, but most people, they use an app, and the locals, they have their Reisekort, which is basically a little card where you tap in and out, sort of like the Oyster card in London. Yeah.
I've noticed a lot of public transportations are becoming like that now.
Yes, yeah, it is very common. But you know, in London, how you have to tap to actually get in there, and
Yeah.
you can't get in without tapping it.
Yeah.
Well, here it's more of a trust system. We
Oh.
trust that you actually tap it in and pay for your ride, and that you tap out again when you go out.
Wow.
But you can get in and out without doing it. Yeah.
Ooh, local tip.
The Danish people are very trusting. Yeah. The Danish people, they really trust that everyone does the right thing. So rather than having the distrust from the start, we begin with trusting you until you prove us wrong.
Are there any specific things that tourists or visitors should know before they come? Say like top 5 things people should know before they come?
Well, let's get back to the bikes, because they have to know about the bike lanes. The bike lanes is not for walking. We have the footpath, then we have the bike lane, and then we have the road. And you don't walk in the bike lane, which is something that I think most travelers who arrive here, they experience at one point, walking in the bike lane and having the local people yell at them, because the bike lanes are not for walking. But I'd also say that Copenhagen has probably made it a little bit difficult to always know when there's a bike lane, because a lot of them look very, very nice and they're very sort of camouflage. So you don't always spot them because they don't necessarily stand out. Like, for example, if you're walking in an area where there's cobblestones, and if the cobblestones are very, very smooth looking all of a sudden, it's a bike lane.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
top thing to know before you come.
Yes, the bike lane. Yeah.
The bike lanes.
Another good thing to know is that it's a very cashless society, so you don't need to exchange money before coming here. You can actually get by with just credit card here. Most places accept credit card nowadays.
Including the public transit.
Exactly. Oh, the canals here. The canals, they are clean. The water is clean in the canals, so they're actually good enough for swimming. So bring your swimwear. So in the summertime, there's loads of people down by the canals because you're allowed to go swimming in the canals. Now, technically, you're not allowed to jump in just anywhere because it can be dangerous because of the boat traffic. But there are some areas where it's sort of sealed off like a pool, and you're allowed to go swimming there.
I did not know that.
No, and winter bathing is really big in Scandinavia as well, so people will also jump in the winter time.
Isn't it cold?
Yeah, it's cold. Apparently that's the thing about it. It's good to jump into cold water.
I've heard that.
And you know, Denmark is very, again, very open-minded, and it's not unusual to see naked people jumping into the canals, summer or winter. Like if you don't bring your swimwear, you get naked and you jump in.
Really?
Yes.
And it's allowed?
Yeah, you're allowed. You're not allowed to like be inappropriate with your nakedness, but you are allowed to be naked. Yeah, because the naked body is not something to be afraid of or ashamed of or anything like that. So nakedness is okay. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah.
All right, I guess those are 3 good things to know for
Yeah.
tourists before they come. What is the nightlife like out here? Where should people go?
The nightlife is, you're asking a 38-year-old.
You're young.
Yeah, I am still young. So I was asking my colleagues about this, like what is the nightlife like, where can you go out and so on. And there's a couple of different suggestions on what to do for nightlife. There's the option of going out to really nice cocktail bars, which is more my style of going out, like to nice cocktails bars, sit down. Again, like bringing it back to the foodie scene here in Copenhagen. There's a really big foodie scene, and of course there's a lot of really nice cocktail bars as well.
Yeah.
So some great cocktails to go out, and you can try that. There's a big music scene as well. There's a lot of good bands playing in lots of different stages where you can also just go and chill with a beer or a cocktail and listen to some great music. There's some really nice jazz bars in town as well that are very, very popular. There's a place where after Lady Gaga played a concert here, she actually went to one of the jazz bars and played like a little intimate concert there, just as like an improv. Yeah, that was really amazing. There is a big difference between summers and winters here. Like a summer day could be going down to the canals, jumping into the water, going for a swim, having a couple of beers, and then going to one of the bars at night. Where in the winter you might meet and have a dinner inside and then go to one of the bars and hang out there.
Nice. Are there any particular areas or neighborhoods people should technically go out in?
So Copenhagen is so small that there's not really an area for this and an area for that and so on. Everything is sort of a little bit in different areas. But I will say a good place to go out at night if you want beer or cocktails or cool bar, trendy bars, chill bars, is probably Vesterbro, which is also where you find the meatpacking district. So the meatpacking district is a good place to go for both food and drinks. And then of course it's very central in Vesterbro. So even if you can't find anywhere there that you like to go to, you can easily head into the neighborhood of Vesterbro and find something there. In Vesterbro, there's the really cool cocktail bars, but there's also the really, really old traditional bars from like the 60s and 70s that are sort of, we call them brown bodegas, which is because they are very sort of dark and brown looking, and the smaller ones you're still allowed to smoke in there. So it's very different than the high class cocktail bars.
That's a big range.
Yes, it is. There is something for everyone here. Even though
that.
it's a small city, there is a lot of things to do.
When's the best time to visit? What's the weather like?
My favorite time of the year is summer, but I'm also very much of a warmth loving person. Like I really like when the sun comes out and you can hang out outside, and the whole thing as jumping into the canals and chilling by the water and so on. Copenhagen is very close to the beach, so you can easily head to the beach from here as well. So I really prefer the summers. I'd probably say if I was to come here and visit, I'd probably choose July, August, maybe even September. That's sort of the really nice summer months. A lot of people, they also come here in December, because in December, of course, it's winter. We have all the Christmas markets, which is very hygge.
Perfect use of the word.
Yeah.
Nice. What are your top 3 must-dos here in Copenhagen?
The pastries, we talked about that already. The pastries are very important. Grabbing a beer in the summer, grabbing a beer by the water, that's sort of a must-do. Go and see some of the bigger sites, like for example, Christiansborg Palace. That's our parliament, really amazing building. The Royal Palace, where the royal family are currently living, you can like literally stand in the middle of the Royal Palace while they're there, while they're at home. There's also another palace called Rosenborg, which is probably the most Renaissance looking palace as well. That's also a must-see while you're here. The food halls. The food halls is an awesome place to check out. They're called Torvehallerne, which basically translates into the food halls in Copenhagen. And there you can get a cup of coffee, you can buy a snack, but you can also go there and do your grocery shopping as a local as well. Grabbing a hot dog, you can grab a hot dog. There's a lot of hot dog stands in town. The hot dogs is sort of the original fast food in Denmark, but now there's not a lot of them left. There's one in the airport, and then there's quite a few in Copenhagen as well. But around Denmark, there's not as many left anymore because, of course, there's a lot of competition from other fast food chains and so on. But in Copenhagen, you can find the hot dog stands on many different street corners. So grabbing a hot dog, making sure you order a hot dog with everything. You get like your bread, you get your sausage, you get ketchup, mustard, you get remoulade, which is a Danish pickle sauce. You get onions and fried onions. You get pickles as well. So you get a lot of things on top of this little bread, which means that when you eat it, everything starts falling off. So you have to look a little bit messy after you're done eating your hot dog. And also traditionally the Danish people, they eat their hot dogs while drinking a cold chocolate milk. That's sort of the Danish way of having a hot dog. It's a bit of an odd combination, but somehow it works. So you need to just trust me on that one. It's because when they first opened up the hot dog stands in the early 1900s, they were not allowed to sell fizzy drinks like sodas and so on. So they needed to sell something else, and they started selling chocolate milks. So that just became a thing in Denmark, hot dogs and chocolate milks.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah.
And do they normally have hot dogs on all the corners of the streets?
Yeah, there's quite a few hot dog stands around town. Yeah, in Copenhagen you can find them many places. And a lot of people, when they go traveling for a longer period, when they arrive home in the airport, one of the first things they do is grab a hot dog from the hot dog stand at the airport.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I definitely know what I'm doing next.
Yes.
I'm getting hungry, so that's perfect.
Yeah, perfect timing. Always time for a hot dog.
Yeah. I guess, is there anything else that you think people should know about Copenhagen, or before they come, what they should be prepared for?
Rather than planning to use a lot of public transport, plan walking first. Because you can walk pretty much everywhere. So some people, they come here and they're already expecting that they have to walk a long distance to get from A to B and so on. And then when they get here, they're a little bit surprised by how close everything is. So there's no need to get like tickets for the public transport in advance. Come here and start walking around and get an idea of how far everything is. And then of course you can always buy the tickets for the buses and the trains and so on before, after you've tried walking around here. So you know that it's not necessarily needed to go on wheels. You can pretty much walk everywhere here.
And one of the best ways is to go on your walking tour.
Absolutely. Go on the walking tour, explore the city, come and join the guides. They know everything about the city that you need to know. And on our tours, you get to see many of the sites. On the 3 different tours we offer, you basically cover most of the inner city because they overlap, but not with the stories. So they see some of the same sites, but they only sort of just shortly pass them. So you basically go in all different directions in the city if you do the different walking tours we have here. So definitely go on the walking tours if you want to really explore the city, learn the history and see all the big sites.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on with us. We really appreciate it.
Well,
this was
thank
so
you.
much fun, and I'm excited I hope this helps people, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yes, me too.
Okay. We hope you enjoyed learning all about Copenhagen from Rikke. She's posted all of her recommendations in our app, Locals Insight, available on iOS now. If you want more information, we actually have a bunch of blogs and a podcast all on our website called localsinsight.com. For more up-to-date and fun information, we have an Instagram and a TikTok @LocalsInsightApp. We're so excited to give you more content, so let us know what city you want to know about next.